Today's tech topic is smartphone charging. Smartphone charging has a lot of mystery associated with it, and everybody seems to be quite willing to give other people advice about smartphone charging. And we're going to talk about what advice is worthwhile and what some things are that you can understand a little bit better, and we'll go through those. So today's agenda is going to cover how charging works on today's modern smartphones. We're going to take a look at some myths you may have heard and why they might be prevalent, some things that are definitely true, some things that are not true, and we're going to take a look at these myths that need to be corrected. We're going to take a look at some tips to keep your battery healthy so that you can extend the life of your battery in your device. And we'll take a look at how to manage some of the settings and how to look at battery settings to get an understanding of what's going on with your battery as well. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the technology for charging. There are chargers, there's a lot of terminology that's used, but a charging technology includes a cable that you would utilize, and it includes a little box called an adapter. And that adapter is from the term power adapter. These things also have other names as well. They're called chargers, they're called bricks. And if you're looking on Amazon or shopping at a store, you might find them by a variety of names. But the cable is usually separate from the power adapter. And in most modern devices now, when you buy a new phone, when you buy a new tablet, when you buy something, usually you may only get a cable. If there's a certain power capacity that's required to power a device, because the size of the power adapter determines how much it can convert AC current to DC current, you might have an included adapter that came with yours, but don't be surprised if when you buy a smartphone you don't get one. It's environmentally correct to be able to save them, but you may find that a cable that came with your device may not fit your old charging adapter, so you may have to get a new power adapter if you haven't had an upgrade in your device these days. Most of them are coming with USB-C cables, which is the smaller size of USB, whereas you can see here's a USB-A cable adapter on one end that you might have currently for your adapter. But just keep in mind that your adapter from your old device is perfectly usable for your new device. And so you just are going to get a cable when you buy a phone these days. Now, an important aspect about cables and adapter quality is really important. There's a lot of products that are made out there, and Apple has a certification program called the Apple MFi Certified. And you can actually do a search on Amazon. I did a search on Amazon and took a little screenshot and said, what is a charging, cable and charging adapter that's certified that will work with Apple? And that means that Apple has inspected it and reviewed it, and they give the brand the ability to do it. Now, it's not required that you have Apple certified or that you buy a Samsung product for a Samsung or a brand name for another product, but it's helpful. Wirecutter, which is a website I go to for a lot of technology advice, reviews adapters. They call them chargers and other things. So they have a top pick and an upgrade pick, and you'll see Anker, Anker, and Belkin mentioned a lot. There are two very high quality brands besides the brand name Apple and Samsung. And then you'll also see some from Amazon Basics. Amazon actually has their own brand name of products, and sometimes you might find a cable made with Amazon Basics and they warranty and service it, and you'll find that. But there actually is a little bit of difference in terms of quality. The important thing is to avoid a no name. Now, obviously, if you're traveling in an airport or somewhere or overseas and you got to get something, you can buy something that'll work. But having an adapter and a cable that are quality will last longer. It'll make sure your device is charging correctly. But there's a lot of circuitry inside our devices to protect them, even if we aren't using the best quality devices. And we're going to take a look at some of that circuitry because we have to resolve this myth number one. Charging to 100% damages the battery. You may hear that. Everybody seems to be an expert on battery charging and smartphone charging out there and has lots of advice out there. But the phones, particularly smartphones and also tablets and computers, they can handle a 100% charge very, very safely. They have built-in circuitry that stops at 100%. They also have something called optimized charging that will prevent damage. That's part of the circuitry that protects your device from going over 100%, but also make sure it actually has resources to lengthen the battery life. And as I mentioned, phones will automatically stop at 100%. Most any modern computer technology device will stop at 100%, but smartphones in particular automatically. It doesn't matter. The Samsung, Google Pixels, Apple devices, they will just stop at 100% and they won't charge anymore after that. So they're going to protect you, and it's okay to charge to 100%. It doesn't damage the battery. Now, here's one thing about how charging works. I took a screenshot. Every time I got ready to go to bed for the evening, I put my phone on a wireless charger that's next to my bed. And if I wake up, early in the morning, I'll see this message that says optimized battery charging. It's scheduled to finish charging by 4 p.m. This was an afternoon that I put my phone on the charger. So what does this optimized charging mean? Well, it means that your phone learns your routine a little bit. There's actually machine intelligence in the charging circuitry in your phone, the software that manages it, and it learns your typical routine. If you go to sleep and you put your phone, plug it in the evening, it learns that's pretty much what you do, and then it establishes a pattern. It fast charges up to 80% of the battery capacity. And that's one of the things that really protects your battery by automatically rapidly charging up to 80%. And then between 80% and 100%, it slows the charging down automatically. You don't have to do a thing. This is the software in the circuitry of your device that's doing this for you, that's optimizing the battery charging. And we'll talk about why that 80% number is important. Also, if you use your battery is hot, or if you're charging your phone in your car and it's a hot day, your charging will slow down and may even stop in order to protect your device from overheating. So there's just a lot of built-in protections that make it easy for us not to really think too much about what's going on. And this ability to optimize charging extends the lifespan of your battery for your device. It makes it last longer. And so most people rarely have to replace batteries in their smartphones these days. The battery lasts quite a long time, the modern type of lithium-ion batteries we use. So we'll take a look at some information when we look at the settings on our iPhone and Samsung devices that'll help us. Okay, now, another myth, fully draining the battery is necessary. It is not, okay? This type of myth applies to older nickel cadmium types of batteries where it was better to let the battery completely discharge to 0%. It is not recommended you do that with modern lithium-ion batteries. They work best when they're charged to at least 20% and up to 80%. Okay, that tends to be the maximum lifespan setting of your battery. Now, as I mentioned, the optimized charging is going to protect it. You can go up to 100%, that's okay. But even if you leave your device plugged in all the time, it'll actually automatically drain your battery a little bit so that it doesn't stay at 100% all the time. So it's perfectly okay to leave it plugged in. We'll talk a little bit about that. But you should always try and keep a little bit of a charge. It's okay to let it go to zero once in a while. I mean, I've had to do that when I've been traveling and haven't gotten to a charger, but don't do it often. Try and avoid doing it as much as possible, and your battery will be happier and it will last longer on your device. And that's one of the important things. Avoid frequent 0% drains, meaning like you do this several times a week. That's going to shorten the battery life of your duration for the time you have your device. Okay, myth number 3, overnight charging damages the battery. It does not. Your phone is automatically going to stop charging at 100%. You've probably heard me say that enough times now. And the battery protection features are going to prevent overcharging. So it's perfectly okay to leave your device plugged in overnight, and even for days or even weeks at a time, it's okay to do that. It's perfectly safe to charge it. Plug it in when you go to bed, leave it charged, and let it charge overnight. Okay, another myth. Wireless charging can damage the battery. I have 2 wireless chargers that I use. I really love them. They're convenient. In fact, you find a friend of mine got a new car, and the car actually has a wireless charging platform by the center console. So you're going to see this used more and more often, and you might see it in airports or other places. Wireless charging does create a little bit of heat. And this is where this myth comes from, is that, oh, that heat's going to hurt the battery. But again, your phone has a system inside of it that understands when it's starting to overheat, and it will automatically slow down the charging if it is overheating. And so you don't have to worry about overheating from wireless charging. Wireless charging will charge a little bit slower than plugged in charging when you plug a cable directly in. But devices like watches and others now come with wireless charging adapters. They're really convenient, and they're really great to use because you don't have to worry about plugging in cables and making sure you plug it in right and get it connected and everything like that. The wireless charging is something that's really fantastic. There's a new standard called Qi2. Apple calls their wireless chargers MagSafe. They work with both, Android, Samsung devices and Android devices, as well as Apple devices, because the Qi industry standard, Qi2, is a more recent standard. It makes sure that the little charging alignment from that little coil here that you place your device on aligns up even better and even reduces heat even more. So wireless charging, perfectly safe. Use it all the time. It's going to be great for you. Now, there's another myth about fast charging. Fast charging is when your battery charges all the way up, as far as it can. But again, the circuitry inside of your device is going to take care of this. Your phone has circuitry in it that automatically will slow down the charging rate after 80%. So it's designed to work really efficiently and protect your battery to make it last as long as possible, so that you don't have to worry about fast charging. Your phone is simply not going to let it happen no matter what you do with it. It's not possible to fast charge beyond 80% for the most part. Now, again, the charging is going to slow automatically to manage the heat of any kind. So if your device is getting hot, even if it's fast charging up to 80%, it'll do that. If it's going further, it'll take care of that. The charging circuitry is just really, really efficient, and the internal protections are going to protect you from any damage. So as you can see, a lot of these myths have kind of taken out the thinking. You really don't have to think that much about charging your battery. The other thing is that there's another myth that I hear a lot about, oh, you should close your background applications and that's going to save your battery life. That's also a myth as well. It comes from the old versions of computer operating systems like Windows, where people would worry about applications running and they had to close them to maximize their resources. Smartphones don't work that way. The operating systems in smartphones will shut down background tasks to save and maximize your battery life as long as possible. So you don't really have to worry about closing applications on your smartphone in terms of it affecting battery life. Now let's talk about some tips about extending battery life. One of the things you can do is keep your charge between 20 and 80%. You don't have to let it go to, 60 or 70 or precise, but for the most part, if you keep your phone charged somewhere between 20 and 80 most of the time, it's going to help lengthen the amount of time your battery lasts. It's okay to go to 100. It'll automatically stop at 100, but even if you leave your phone plugged in, it's going to automatically discharge your battery a little bit and stop charging so that you don't stay at 100 all the time. And also, if you happen to go to 0%, don't panic. It's just advisable if you can keep a little bit of charge in your battery at all times, it's better for you. But don't feel like you have to plug it in all the time. It's okay. It's more a matter of how much your charge you need during the day and how often you might be away from a place where you can charge it. Another thing, avoid charging in hot environments, sometimes really cold environments too, but the most important thing is really hot environments. Don't leave your phone on the dashboard of a car in the summer. Even in, milder weather, the interior of a car gets really, really hot. So charging in a hot environment, your phone's going to slow down. But, charging in a hot environment, it's going to try and charge to the maximum it can heat up. And sometimes that charging can generate a little bit of heat. If you can avoid charging in really hot environments, that's great. It's really helpful. It will extend your battery life. But again, if once in a while is not going to cause any real significant damage of any kind. The other tip about extending your battery life is to check your battery health settings. So we're going to take a look. Every once in a while, you might need to look at it. It's rare that people bother even because most of the time the battery can be a just don't think about it type of approach where you use it. And that's really important. But if you're concerned about it, you want to see what's going on with your battery life, you can do it. And what'll happen is that over the duration of ownership of your device brand new, the battery has a capacity of 100% charge. Over time, it will gradually start to go to maybe 95% capacity or 80% capacity. But if it gets too much lower, then you might find that the amount of time it stays charged is not the amount of time you want to use it. And that can be some reason for maybe looking at a battery replacement. Sometimes you can replace it depending on the device, and other times you can just upgrade your device because usually batteries will last, as many as 4 or 5 years, even longer. But you may not get as much of a duration of time from an older battery as you do from a newer battery. Now, what are some red flags to watch for? Some things that can warn you, and then we're going to take a look at some settings. If your battery really doesn't seem to keep a very good charge, if it's below 80%, that's probably a sign that the battery is either really old or something is, going wrong with it. Sometimes, as I mentioned, it's possible to replace the battery on some devices. Other times it's just worth an upgrade. If you see your device shutting down or rebooting a lot, sometimes the batteries lose their power. That could be a damaged battery or a battery that's gotten too old. And that could be a sign of a battery health issue. Or if you see excessive heat. Now, your device is going to feel warm in your hand when it's charging, But if it gets too hot to hold, that's considered excessive heat. And that means something in the circuitry in the software may not be protecting your battery. We'll take a look at these settings here. On iPhones on the left, there is a battery setting that we'll look at. And on Android on the right, there is a battery setting we're going to look at. So let me change my sharing here and see if I can get my Android device up here for screen sharing. There we go. You should see my Android device, my screen. Okay, so let me check this out, see if I can find it. I've gone into settings, and you can find settings, you can search for settings, but at some point you will find a battery piece of information here. And battery is right here where it says power saving and charging. Okay, so what this will tell me is that Samsung and Android generally work this way. It will tell me that I've got a full charge will last me about 4 days based on how I use my Samsung. I use my iPhone a little bit more than that. And I've got 3 days and 22 hours left available of this charge. There's a power saving setting. If I want to use a low power mode, I can do that. And I've also got a battery protection option. Okay. Generally, you'll see your battery will be basic. So when your battery is charged to 100%, it'll stop until the battery level drops below 95%, and then charging will start again. That's automatic. Adaptive. So it's going to use maximum charging while you're asleep, and then it'll switch to basic before you wake up. Or if you want to set it to maximum, your battery is just going to stop charging when it reaches 80%. In general, the basic is okay to do, but if you turned off battery protection, it would say, it'll give you a message here, keeping your battery at a full 100% charge for a long time. Like I say, it's okay for a little while, but for a long time, it's going to reduce its lifespan. So choose an option below, and that'll help your battery last longer on your device. That's all you really have to do. Generally, it's set for basic, and then it'll show you a little bit of chart here on how long you've been using it, whether you have it charging or not. If I plug it in right now to my charging adapter, it'll show that it's charging here, and it shows that it's a 94% capacity, and it's perfectly okay to use that way. And I leave my Samsung plugged in a lot. I leave my iPhone plugged in a lot as well. Okay, so let me change over to, let me go back to battery here. A few other settings are in battery as well, but that's the really important one to pay attention to is your battery protection, and that'll make sure your battery lasts as long. Some people trade in their devices every couple of years, and if you do that, your battery is going to be fine for that period of time. But if you trade in your device less frequently and you keep it lasting a little bit longer, you may want to change how you do that. Okay. So let's take a look at my iPhone here and see if I can get this shared. And there we go. Okay. Hold on a second. We should get sharing up here in a second. There we go. Okay. So on my iPhone, in settings, there is a setting for battery, and it'll actually tell you your battery health is normal. So I like to turn on battery percentage. That lets me see the percentage of charge I've got on my battery indicator. If I turn that off, you'll see that it just shows charging. I just like to have that. I don't need low power mode. Sometimes if you're getting down below 20% and you aren't charging, your phone will ask you, do you want to use low power mode? And that just reduces background activity and reduces the amount of battery use that's using. You can see that battery health is normal. And you can see my battery capacity, maximum capacity is at 89%. I've had my iPhone for about 13, 14 months, And this is perfectly normal. It started out at 100%. It's at still about 90%. That means that it will only store a maximum of 90% compared to when it was new. But it says lower capacity may result in fewer hours of usage between charges. Not a major problem. And you'll see this number cycle count. This is the number of times your battery has been used. A cycle is a full charge from 0 to 100%. So if I charge from 50% to 100%, I've used 1/2 cycle. If I charge from 0 to 50, I've used 1/2 of a cycle. And so even if you charge like 20%, you're using 2/10 of a cycle. And batteries are typically rated to go as many as 1,000 cycles. And so this is perfectly normal for you to see a cycle count of about 300 charges, 300 cycles for an iPhone that's about 12 to 15 months old. Perfectly fine. And it tells you when it was manufactured. Now, Apple gives you a few little more graphs here. It tells you what's been going on in your battery level for a while. Both Apple and Samsung will show you usage by app here as well. And we can take a look at our battery health here and get a little more information about that. We can take a look at our charging, and we can see. I don't think I ever changed this. I think optimized battery charging is automatically set to on, which means that when the charge is set to 100%, you can set your charge limit if you want to, but there's no need to change it. It's only going to go up to 80%, and then it'll do the 80 to 100% based on the machine learning from when you're using it. That's why if I put it on my charger at bedtime, it's going to go up to 80% pretty quickly, and then it's going to go from 80 to 100% up. And you can see the charge limit is not 0 to 100%, it's 80 to 100%. So you can actually force your phone to only go up to 80% if you want to, but it's automatically going to learn your activity and how it works, and you can learn more in your battery settings if you're ever interested in doing that. So it gives you a little bit of information. Normally the default settings in both Android and Apple phone devices are set up, and iPads are the same way. Macs and Windows laptop computers are very much the same way, so that you won't find that there's really a great need to do anything more than just what you normally do with your device and take care of it, because it's going to do it automatically for you. And when I tell people that ask me, what should I do about charging? I say, don't think about it, because the circuitry in your devices is intelligent enough to make sure the battery is going to last as long as it's technically possible for it to last for you. So I hope I've helped correct a few myths about it and giving you some advice on how to check battery settings. Take care.
Thank
Thank you very much, Bob.
Boosty.
Bye-bye.